Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of Be Your Own Boss. If you're a solopreneur, if you are an SME, if you're running a small business, and the task of setting up your business, going through all the legal compliance and the regulatory requirements and everything, these can be really daunting when you're just starting and you need to set up your business either in the UAE or anywhere else in the world. So this is where Nirvan FZO comes into play. Nirvan is a company that helps SMEs and solopreneurs set up their businesses in terms of the legal processes, the compliance, the regulatory requirements, and all those paperwork related work, so that you can focus on your business, develop your business, and let the expert take care of the paperwork. And our guest this week is Forum Mehta, the founder of Nirvan. Let's welcome Forum and let's learn about her story, her journey. Forum, thank you so much for taking our time and joining us here on the Be Your Own Boss podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Sachin. Thank you for having me over and giving me a chance to share my journey with your listeners.
Thank you. So, Forum, like we always do on the Be Your Own Boss podcast, let's start with your story right from the beginning. Tell us about your parents, your siblings, where were you born, and
All
your
right.
childhood memories.
Yes, so I am born and brought up in Mumbai, in India, and coming from a humble middle class background. I have an elder brother, just the two of us, and I always come from a family background who are into service, like a job. My father is working, my mother's a homemaker, and that's the whole family and the environment I have been brought up into. Because the people, though I am a Gujarati, but most of the people I was surrounded by were from working class. Everybody is having a job, typical 9 to 6 job, and that's the type of environment I have been brought up in. Coming from Mumbai and a middle class family, and in the 90s when we were growing up, there was no technology or things. So there was a lot of hustling happening around, a lot of jugaad, as you call it in Hindi, wherein you use your tricks and nuances to get your things done, even as a kid. So that's where we learned a lot on how to be street smart, and getting limited pocket money at that point of time from family, and running on budget to get things done, or to get your candies or chocolates and things like that.
Yeah, and Mumbai makes us really like. I'm also from Mumbai, and Mumbai makes us like
Oh, okay.
street smart.
Yes,
you know,
you have to
it
be.
really
You have
makes us tough. Yeah, yeah.
definitely,
By the way,
definitely.
growing up as a child, did you have aspirations to become an entrepreneur? Do you think one day you'll become
Never.
a businesswoman?
Never,
Never.
absolutely never. That was never in the farthest dream that I had thought that business would be a thing that I would always venture into, or something I'd looked at. Because all my extended families, or even friends, family friends, everybody was a working class people, a typical 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 job, where the fathers used to go in the morning, work all day, come back, and moms were typical homemaker looking after the kids, house, and everything. So if you're not exposed to certain things as a kid, you never dream of becoming one. But later,
Mm.
when you yourself become an adult, and when you meet people from different walks of life, and different people doing different innovative things, especially with the IT thing coming, and different aspects coming into picture, you start realizing that that is something you really would want to do. And yeah, coming from a working class background to an entrepreneur is a journey in itself for me.
You see other people when you grow up, you realize that, oh, there is this thing called entrepreneurship, and then you kind of get into that. And tell us like about your education side. Like, so after your schooling, what kind of education did you go into?
Yeah. So I did my bachelor's in commerce, followed by a company secretarial course, which was mainly into following the legal compliances of the company. So I had read a little bit about it, and my curiosity was into the more of a compliance or a legal side of the rules and regulations that prevail in India, like getting listed on stock exchanges, or you need to be reporting your accounts and all of it. So that was something really intriguing to me, the legal side and literature side of what the companies take care of. And then post that, I did my post graduation in LLB, lawyer. So that's always the field I was interested in. And as I told before, I mean, coming from a family background to service, you always want to reach at a top notch level in big organizations like being the CEO or MD, or you always aspire to reach there. And that is what my aim was at that point of time. That's what I always looked up to at. And luckily I had a very good family support in terms of education, and my parents were always supportive. My father always encouraged us to be and to study whatever we wanted, and there was no pressure in terms of of monetary pressure that you have to earn early or all of this. So with God's grace, I had that support from my family that I could study, and that has helped me shape a lot of personality, in terms of, say, my personality, or in terms of how I look at life and how I approach people. What basic things you learn as a child, as a teenager, in those years, those nuances that you pick up, those cultural etiquettes that you learn, that helps you a lot, and that grooms you a lot as a person, which helps you
Absolutely.
in
And
long run as an adult.
yeah, yeah, those are the shaping like years, right? Really, those are the
Yes.
ones that yeah. And so once you finished your LLB, what kind of jobs did you go
Yeah.
into?
So initially, I started from internship and apprenticeship, wherein I did from the smallest job. It was not that something had been handed over easily to me. So I started from just basic writing things in ledger, and doing or running around, as they say, like a proper intern, running around with a coffee and taking out xeroxes and all. And that's how you learn basically. And then with God's grace, I had good mentors over different walk of my life, wherein they taught
Mm.
me several things, and it wasn't always easy peasy. I remember as an intern, I had cried several times when your mentor, especially a male, in his early years, I mean, you getting scolded as a teenager, or in your early 20s, and not getting done things done on time, or not understanding how things are to be done, or how to approach them in different sort of ways. So those are the
Yeah.
things that shape you. If I look at it back then, it was a big thing, but then I see how they mold you and they shape you. And it is a good thing that we start from scratch, to be honest, because
Yeah.
that's how you look at things differently. And once you're at the top, you understand that what other people have to do to reach there, and what are the different small impacts on things as well. You don't look at a broader picture, but you understand other people's problems as well if you have gone through it.
When you're handling people, you kind of know
Yes,
what they're going through, and yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's how it started. I did my internship. Then
Mm.
lucky, I had to struggle a lot to find a job. Honestly, it didn't come out very easily. So going door to door looking for opportunities, I got a job opportunity in a small chartered accountant company, wherein I was handling the compliancing of their staff members and of their other companies. And it started small. It wasn't that I landed up a big job easily, but then
Mm.
after a lot of struggle and hustle, luckily I got a good position in McDonald's Group as a compliance officer, with as one of their team. Yeah. So it took a lot of struggle and hustle, but after a years of hard work and putting in, getting out the knowledge out of it, and doing a lot of energy into it, I luckily ended up in a good job where I got really good exposure, and you get to meet greater people. The more and
Mm.
more exposure you get, and the more and more type of people you meet, I mean, it helped me a lot. And I
Yeah.
worked for McDonald's for a good amount of time, wherein I learned a lot from the seniors out there. And at that point of time, when you are in a bigger organization and in a better position, your inputs are valued, you are taken into consideration, you're taken seriously. And when
Yeah.
you put in your inputs, and when you try to give in your opinions or your projects, you really get recognition, and that's how you come up. So that has really
Mm.
helped me and boosted me a lot.
Wow.
So
And
yeah,
how did
that is
Dubai
how.
happen? When did you move to Dubai then?
So I think most of your podcasters would agree. I mean, I got married, and that's how I landed up in Dubai, like
Okay.
many of the
So
girls
marriage
out
brought
there.
you to Dubai.
Marriage brought me to Dubai. My husband was here, and their parents thought it's the right time to get married. And it was an arranged marriage. We met, and things fell into place, and that's how I came to Dubai. So honestly, at
Mm.
that point of time, I was at the peak of my career, and at not peak, I would say, but I was at a stepping stone where I could have really got good access and good jump from a bigger organization to a bigger position, and working in there. But somehow things must have been meant to be this way that I ended up in Dubai, leaving behind my whole career and whole background there. So yeah, that's how Dubai began. And honestly, at that point of time, I didn't know what I would do in my life or how things would turn out. This part of the world was very new, and luckily it happened well that now that I'm an entrepreneur. But yeah, it was a beautiful and a scary journey in itself.
So when you came to Dubai, did you start looking for a job here, or did you think that
Yes.
like you, yeah?
Yeah, I started working at a place, but to find that
Oh, okay.
job also, if most of the people would understand that finding a job in Dubai is difficult unless and until you don't have the right contacts or you know how to apply or where to apply. So that was the bigger challenge for me. But yeah, I had my own fair share of struggle wherein I still remember I had a pile of resumes with me, and I used to go door to door trying to approach HR agencies and trying to approach different companies to know where to start from, because uh, the market here or the legal aspects here, my field, the compliance field, was totally new to me. So I was as good as a fresher despite of having several of work experience back home. So
Mm.
didn't really know what to start from, where to start from. But somehow I ended up finding a job which was more or less closer to what I used to do back at home, so which is licensing and registration of companies in UAE, helping
Oh,
clients comply with the legal requirements and all of it. So that's how I ended up in this profession, which I
mm.
somehow enjoy and I can relate to. And a part of my knowledge in that field also helps me out with it.
It's a new country. The laws are different. Did you have to go through
Yes.
some kind of certification or something to kind of learn the laws here?
Yes. So in the initial phase, I had to read a lot to understand what the legal compliances are. What are the different regulatory bodies out here? What are the different type of authorities or the different jurisdictions that you need to look at? So in the earlier stage, there was a lot of reading and discussion with the different individuals and try to understand how things work around in this part of the world, because
Mm.
in India it's altogether different, and in other Asian countries for that matter, the way these things work are very much different to how UAE is. So in certain ways UAE is really simple and straightforward, but it's very much different in terms of compliancing and in terms of reporting in that ways. And now after so many years there are more and more regulations coming into picture. So it's not just that you study at one point and it's done and dusted. You have to keep on reading and understanding, because every 6 months or a year there's some new compliancing coming into picture, and you need to make sure that you are well versed with the things and you are within the legal framework. You can't just be like, I've done it and I don't care what the authorities want or
Yeah.
what the real world is. So you have to make sure that you yourself are compliant with it. And you, because being in profession, we get come across clients from different stratas where one person's requirement would be different from another person's requirement. So reading out thorough, understanding it thorough, attending webinars and seminars and all of it to keep ourselves updated with the
It's a
legal laws.
it's a
And then of course
constant
there comes
learning
a
process,
certain,
right? It's like a
absolutely,
constant learning
absolutely, it's
process. You
constant
have to
learning.
keep on,
It is,
yeah,
it is. You have to keep on updating yourself as well. So you have to keep on learning, you have to keep on reading a lot. So it's not just something one off you did it one time and it's good to go, sort of a thing.
yeah. So you started
Yeah.
working.
Yes.
When did the idea of like starting on your own? When did Nirvan come into that?
Honestly, it didn't come that soon. I took
Hmm.
my sweet time to understand and to learn the industry. But I'll tell you one of the instances when I was working with that organization. One of our clients who was almost of my same age group, or I could say a couple of years younger than me. He was very pally with me, and like a good client relation we had. That I understood one thing from him, that he was working in an organization in the same building we were located, as well as he was
Hmm.
running his own business. So this exactly happened just prior to COVID times, where things were going downhill for everybody, and this person who was hustling so much that he was minting a lot of money and he was taking different assignments and everything during COVID, when the COVID was at its peak. And I was completely surprised that if this person can do it, and if there's so much of potential out there, it's just that you need to look at it from a different angle, and you just need to build up your connections and do things. Why can't I? And since then, the whole strata changed, that okay, this is something even I can do and I should do, now that I have the potential, and it's something I aspire to be. And being an entrepreneur comes up with its own luxuries as well as its own backseat. I mean, I would say it's with own pros and cons. So the pros
Yeah.
attracted me a little more than the cons, and I was like, no, this is something I really aspire to be. And that's how I started thinking towards it. Then
Hmm.
motherhood happened to me, and I had to
Hmm.
take a little bit of break and maternity leave. And my child inspired me some way to be an entrepreneur, so that you be a boss at home and you be a boss at work. So that was the changing factor for me, that triggered me that
How
no, I
sweet.
should be really getting into this.
Yeah. So when you took the maternity break, you kind of quit your job and you focused on
Yes.
your son. Okay, okay,
Yeah,
great.
I
That's
quit
sweet.
my job. I focused on my
Yeah.
child, but 3 months down the line, when you're full hands-on mom, you feel
Mm.
something is missing within. So it's a typical mom guilt sort of a thing, that if you're not looking after your child, then you feel guilty towards him. Or if you're not working full time, then you have a guilt that despite of being educated and having so much of qualification, you're not able to do justice to your profession or your child. I mean, that's always a dilemma we women are in, mothers are in. So
Mm.
3 4 months down the line, I felt that no, there needs to be something. I can't let go this fire within me to do something. And that's when I started my own company, I started my own organization. And I said, no, now this is something I want to take it forward, wherein I can manage my child as well as my profession.
Wow. Must have
Yeah,
been difficult in the beginning years, right? Like to
it was.
manage the business and yeah.
Yes, it definitely was. It definitely was. But you have something. When you have your own business, it's like a child of your own. You're running two childs together. One is your baby, and one is your profession. The level of satisfaction you get, when even if it's a small job, it's not that you always have to be at the top of it, or even one or two small projects, it ignites that, it makes you happy, and it brings us different sort of satisfaction, that oh, I'm still able to do it. And if I'm able to hustle between these two things, why not put in all in, go all in, and get what I want. So that
Yeah.
has really helped me a lot.
Yeah. And did it help that like you're working for yourself when while taking care of your baby? So usually, if you have a 9 to 5 job, you're bound by the timings of that, right? Like when
Yes,
you're
yes,
your own boss, you have the freedom of
you
doing
have the
things at
freedom.
your yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So you have that liberty, and that flexibility is one thing that really attracted me, because the amount of effort you put in is more or less the same in any job that you do. But with entrepreneurship, or if you yourself are the owner, business person, you have that liberty to do things at your time, do things at your ease, assignments that suit you. It's not,
Mm.
sometimes there are times that you have to let go a couple of assignments as well if you're not able to take care of it. And that's when you realize that you have to expand your team. And there are time, I mean, it's a crazy work environment that ways. But as far as what I can say, you're able to juggle between two things, two jobs. This
Mm.
could go for people who are working as well, who have a 9 to 5 job. There are many people who have like a side hustle or a side business, wherein you try to make an extra buck, you give in all your time and effort, and you try to get things out of it. And then eventually, for
Yeah.
most of them, it becomes like a full-time business.
Yeah. Yeah. True. We'll talk about the team expansion and the hiring process as well. But before that, let's touch upon the financial side here a little bit. When you started, like started your own venture, right? Um, did it require a lot of investment from your side? How did you manage the financials? Because when you quit your job, your I mean, although your
Yes,
husband is working, the household income drops, right? Like there is
yes,
an impact
absolutely.
financially.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, what happens is that when you quit your job and you venturing into new business, there are a couple of factors in finance itself that you need to look after. One would be that if you are into a product base, then the capital infusion that you need is really high because you're investing a lot of capital in your product or in your in product development and marketing, and the turnover time of payments from the client when it's around 3 months, 6 months, 60 days, 90 days, 180 days, depending on. So you need to invest a lot of funds if your product is a product, is it's a commodity. Basically, it's a product that you have to invest in. But if you are into a service sector, which I am in, there is less amount of investment. What you're investing in would be your licensing fees, would be your website and tech support, would be your staff salary, or if you are, what remuneration you're drawing from it, would be just the basic overhead expenses like marketing, etc. So it completely
Mm,
depends on what nature of your product is, because what things might serve a service industry might not serve a product based industry. So that is something prior to starting your business one should look into, that what type of business is it, how much investment do I need to put in, how much funds do I need to park aside. Because to be honest, any business that you start, in order for it to be break even or sustainable, it takes a little longer than anyone anticipate. Things don't turn around very quickly, like magically in a couple of months, or it takes years and years
true.
to reach that break even and all. So one has to always think about what my investments would be in those, how much can I sustain, because everybody has to look. Being in Dubai, I mean, it's an expensive country. You have to look out for your expenses. If you have a family to support, expenses for family, visa costs, and all of it. So all those factors you need to take into consideration. There would be times where you'll have to take loans from outsiders or from institutes just to infuse in money and get things running, because you're so sure of your products. And that's not a good feeling, that when you try to borrow money and things are not still going downhill and sideways. I mean, it's things are not working in your favor. It's a really difficult phase. But trust me, if
Mm,
you have full faith in your product or your service, things come around.
yeah. What about
Having
your
said that,
situation, particularly in your case?
I didn't have to struggle too much from the monetary aspect, because I am giving a service. So I don't have any tangible products per se. So my investments are really restricted. And with the savings I had in from the job I did, and I had saved some of the funds, it was easier for me to get into things. And then, as in how you start your business, as in you do a little bit of sales and the income is generated, you reinvest it in your business and try to expand it. So that's the approach I took in. It depends
Mm,
again how much your financial needs are. You need to, in the initial phase, one doesn't have that liberty to pull out as many funds as one wants for personal use or expenses. So you need to really cut down on your expenses. You need to try to hustle a bit and try to minimize your expenses as much as possible. But there are certain expenses that are inevitable, like licensing fees or visa cost or certain things that you have to incur. That comes a part of it. And when you're trying to budget or trying to make a proper budgeting for your organization, you need to factor in all these costs, because those are something you can't avoid.
absolutely. Yeah. And let's talk about the hiring process. Like when you started, you were on your own, but after that, did you
Yes.
hire any employees? And when did you decide that this is a good
Yes.
time to expand?
So in the first year specifically, it was just me, and you start from scratch trying to do everything and anything in the organization. And gradually you tie up with different freelancers just to get things done at a lower cost, because in the initial phase you don't have that much of liberty to infuse that much of fund, and you are really not sure whether you'll be able to generate that amount of income to provide salaries, because so far you just pay. Your payment is bound to you if you're just by yourself and you understand where your finances are. But when you start hiring somebody, you have to make sure that you have to pay their salaries on time and to cater to their needs and everything. So it comes a little bit post probably after a year, 1.5 year, when you realize that, okay, things are turning around and you have a fixed set of customers or clients where you're going to generate an X amount of income in your organization, and you can afford to have an employee to pay their salaries, and that will help you increase your revenue itself, increase your sales. So it's like a whole cycle wherein you put in money or you invest in your employees who generate income further for you. So you
Yeah.
need to factor in all these things, wherein how to
So in
employ and whom to employ, what are the different
yeah.
segments.
So in your case, after like how many, was it years, months, did you hire your first employee?
Around a year's time, like by around 10th or 11th month, I realized that
Mm,
now I have a fixed set of clients and my potential is there. I have X number of things that lined up, that I feel that, now I need an external hand and I need an
mm,
expertise to take care of this thing, so that I can have a look at a bigger picture. So around a year's
mm,
time is when I realized that now, okay, I can afford to hire a staff, and I can afford to have somebody on board to run around things, and I can have
yeah,
my upper hand over a bigger picture, like
yeah.
marketing and meeting clients more and more. So yeah, those were the things
So
for me.
and Forum, like one of the challenges that all new businesses usually face is like finding clients and promoting how to
Yes.
go about. So how did you manage to, in your case, how did you manage to get your first few clients, and how did that happen?
Yeah. So initially, I mean, I use this technique of writing down, as in I have a big whiteboard in my office wherein I always put down the pointers as to what is my target, how do I achieve it. Yeah, me and my husband was a part of my team, and in the initial phase he helped me out with a little bit of strategizing, and then my staff came in. So we have like a brainstorming session wherein we put down what our goal is. So for me also, when I was the only person in my organization, I put down that, okay, I need to have this X amount of target in my company, or this should be my expected turnover or sales amount, or XYZ. And how do I approach it? So you try to venture out different channels. It could be networking. There are a lot of networking meetings out there. You do a lot of marketing via social media like Instagram or LinkedIn, Facebook. You put out a lot of content and make your presence, because for a fresh entrepreneur, establishing that presence in the market takes a little bit of time, because you're a newbie. People don't know who you are, so you need to be out there, present yourself, give a little bit of information or input as to what exactly are you doing. Try to bring people's confidence in you, so that they try and come out and have a word with you and try to avail your services in my case. So yeah, all those
Mm,
factors helped. And a major factor that helped me, Sachin, was my contacts I had built over the years. It was different business contacts that you build, and it's not necessarily contacts with your clients, because it could be contacts with your peers, your other colleagues who have left the organization, or some counterparts also whom you deal. I mean, for somebody like me, we used to work with different offices as well. It wasn't just related to one or two communities. So you build your contacts and you maintain those contacts over a period of time, and that's when people start having faith in you. Because for a small
mm,
business, for somebody like me, in the initial phase, I am my company, my repute is my company, and I am presenting. So people wouldn't know you by your company name for the initial years, they would know you by you. So if they are
yeah,
happy with you, if they are really contented and they have confidence in you, they would give you the job. So the your
mm.
image is something that's really important at that stage. You present your business, nobody else will.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So Forum, when people start, people want to set up their own business here in Dubai. We all know that starting up a business in Dubai is much easier than anywhere else in the world. But can you just talk us through that process? Like, if I were to start a business, what kind of things do I need to keep in mind, from a legal perspective, from a documentation perspective?
Sure. So yes, as you said, setting up a business in UAE, in Dubai, is pretty simple and straightforward process. A couple of things you need to take care of is, the first thing would be that where is your business located? There are several free zones in UAE. There is a mainland, which we call a mainland company, an LLC company, wherein you can establish your business. So you need to decide where you want your operations to be. Within UAE, there's no restriction that if you're in a free zone, you can do business within the free zone. No, you can do businesses across the free zone, across mainland, and even overseas for that matter. It's not restricted to that free zone itself, but your operations have to be from that. So, say for example, if I am based in Dubai and I'm running my office from Dubai from a particular jurisdiction, say for example, JLT, then I need to be registered with DMCC. I can't be sitting in downtown and running my business from JLT. So that's what the geographical location restriction means. You have to be registered under that authority. My office would be there itself. It can't be in a different location and I am under a different authority. My staff has to be working from there. So that's the main thing you need to decide. In this decision, there are a lot of factors coming in as to what is the nature of business, because in UAE all certain jurisdictions cater to specific nature of products. So if when we say Dubai Media City, it really relates, and the infrastructure is in such a way that it helps people who are in the media industry, who are into the IT industry, marketing, digital media, all of it. So the infrastructure of that free zone is built in such a way that it helps promote them. It's not that they can't have a company anywhere else, but the infrastructure is in such a way that it caters to their needs. When it comes to product base, say for example Javza, Jabal Ali Free Trade Zone, they have a port in there. They have access to the nearest airport, Maktoum Airport. So the free zone itself is built in such a way that it helps you cater your business. So that's the important thing. You need to identify where you want your operations to be running from and where you want your office to be held. Apart from that, you need to decide on what activity or what products you're dealing in. Because on the trade licenses in UAE, you need to really specify what are the products, what are the different services that you're going to be catering to. So you need to pinpoint on that as well. It can't be in thin air that, I don't know, maybe this, maybe that, or no. You need to really be sure about what exactly you want to do work in. Yeah, you can hunt out a little bit that, these are the 3 4 type of product types that, I can venture in, which is fine, but it can't be like very random for that matter.
So, under one trade license, can one have multiple business activities, or is it restricted to one
Yes, you
activity?
can.
Multiple.
No,
Okay.
you can have multiple activities, and in certain free zones and certain jurisdictions, you can club services and products as well. So it's not just restricted to one thing. You can club a couple of activities. You can, catering to your requirements. Everything is customizable in that sense, subject to the approval from the authorities. It's pretty much easier that way, but you need to know what you want. You need to know that these are the different products or the services that I need, and then you can run around the business, because these activities are so important that it's there on the trade license. And when you're running your business operations, you need to stick to it. It can't be that you're having ABC as your activity on your trade license and you are doing XYZ. So that's how. And also on these factors, when it comes to banking or with other regulatories like federal tax authorities and Ministry of Foreign Affairs and all of this, they do verify that you're conducting your activity as per your trade license. So you have to make sure that you're within the boundaries of law.
Yeah, and also there are these other approvals like Dubai municipality or Abu Dhabi municipality approvals, and depending on the this, right. So can you talk us
Yeah.
through that process also? Like, what are the other than the trade license? What else does one need?
So it completely depends on what activity you've selected. There are certain activities that require municipality approval. There are certain activities that require securities authority approval, the telecom approval, food industry approval. So it depends on what segment you are in. If your segment, say for example, if you're wanting to trade in a particular food product, then you have to go for municipality approval and health and ministry approval to get your product approved. But if you are falling into IT, then you have to get an IT authority approval. So it depends on, completely depends on what approval or what authority you're registered under and what is your activity. It's a combination of those things. So this we
Got it.
normally guide to our clients whenever they come to us for a consultation, wherein this is your activity. These are the ones that require special approval. These are the ones that do not require. So there are several activities that do not need any external or a third party approval, as we said. So it completely
Mm.
depends on case to case basis.
Got it. And what's the cost of setting up a business in the UAE? Like, what's that range?
There are several things, factors that come into picture. Honestly, it
Mm.
depends what free zone you're doing the business in, because different free zones have different pricing. It's not that all the free zones stick to the same pricing. It again depends on the visa requirements, because if you require a visa from the company, the pricing goes up. If you are going to sponsor somebody on your company as in hire staff or management, etc., then the fees go up. So it's completely, it depends on how you want to operate and what are your requirements. But just to give your listeners just a broad term understanding, it starts from minimum, like 5,000, 6,000 dirhams onwards, up to 50,000 dirhams. So
Okay.
it depends upon what your requirements are. Whether do you need an office, you want to work virtually, you don't need an office, you want to hire
Mm.
staff, you don't want to hire staff, you need a visa, you don't need a visa. So all those factors come into it.
Yeah. And when it comes to free zones, right? I mean, this is a very like a very favorite topic because like I know a lot of people who want to know about like these kind of they are always interested in setting up businesses in free zones, and there are
Yes.
the price range is so different. Like I know I think Ajman free zone has like it's a very small fee compared to other free zones. So when we like why would somebody not go to a different free zone if one free zone is offering, let's say, just within some 2000 dirhams or something like that, they say that you can
Yeah.
set up a business and
So yes, there is a huge difference in the pricing of different free zones. So with Ajman free zone or Sharjah free zone and even Russell Kema, they everybody's competing on the price point. So for a new entrepreneur, pricing is a bit of an issue, but you need to understand that it's not just you're getting a license, because right now you take a license, you set up your company, but 6 months, 1 year down the line, when you need an establishment card or when you need an office, that's when you get to know that, oh, you can't have that. Or if you have an Ajman license, you can't have an office in Dubai. You have to go all the way to Ajman, sit there and work from there, which might not be convenient for you. So this are the different factors that venture in. If you are looking for something that for lifelong, I'm going to be working from home or remotely, and price sensitivity is a thing for you, then you can opt for it. So
mm,
it depends on, as I said, it completely depends on what your requirements are. If you're going to
yeah,
hire staff, then say for example, if you have an Ajman visa, so you have to, for the staff also it will be an Ajman visa. You
yeah,
have to run down, you have to make that rundown. Then another factor that not many people understand would be that when you're licensing and when you try to deal with your clients, there are certain clients who are not really happy with, if especially if you're working for big clients and big projects, they don't take you seriously if you come from like not a reputed free zone in that aspect.
sure,
So there are certain types of clients, or if you're trying to target big organizations, they have like a checklist of things wherein they only work with mainland companies because their tax structures are in certain way, or they only work with a specific sort of authorities only. So
mm,
whenever anybody is trying to set up the company, and if their target is a specific type of clientele or nature of business, then it's really important to introspect and see that if I take these type of licenses, would it work? Because so many times it has happened that people set up company thinking that it's cheap and it's cost effective, and then it doesn't cater to what their needs are 6 months, 8 months down the line, when practicality hits and when you're running the operations, getting the bank account done and all. So that's, you need to see a little bit in forecast as to 6 months, 8 months down the line, when things are going to be turning around and getting done. At that point of time,
yeah.
how will it impact me?
Yeah, I think it is like looks like it is important for someone who's starting a business to first consult with an expert like you, and and then go through that entire plan and then decide what free zone or mainland to go for, what kind of license to apply for, and It will help to plan that in advance rather than
Yes.
just going for the cheapest option, right?
Yes, definitely. Because we understand how different free zones work, how the regulatory authority works, and it's really important to understand what your needs are, because one person's need can be different from another one. Just because one person has gone to XYZ free zone doesn't mean that you also end up going there just because it's cheap. It might not suit your requirement. And
Yeah.
sometime down the line, you people do close business and move free zones. That's what we've seen so many
Hmm.
times, that oh, this is not favoring me and I think the other free zone would be better. So
Hmm.
price is definitely a really important thing, especially for a budding entrepreneur or somebody who's just starting up and doesn't want to shell more. It is really important, but just blindly going into it just from the price point factor is wouldn't make sense. There are other factors that you need to look at for some time down the line as well.
Absolutely. So, Forum, like for people who are watching this, people who are listening to this, and want help in starting their business, setting up their business, what's the best way to reach out to you so that they can consult you before taking that step?
Your listeners can reach out to me on my website www.nirvan.com, as well as can reach out to me on different social media platforms like LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube as well. So please feel free to reach out to me, and we would love to have a consult with you and help you grow your business really well.
Sure, Forum. Thank you so much. I'll include the links to your website and your LinkedIn profile in the show notes and in the description for YouTube, so that way then people can reach out to you. And Forum, looking back at your journey, right from the intern who used to run around taking Xerox copies to the
Yeah.
businesswoman that you've become now, um, who or like, are there any people or are there any situations or skills that you would like to give the credit to for your success?
I mean, there's so many people, to be really honest, who has shaped me the way I am. My parents, my past mentors, even in India, my colleagues, my husband, the family support that I have. It wouldn't have been without them that I would have reached the place where I am. And especially my baby, my child, who has inspired me and pushed me to get things rolling and have my own business and have my this child, Nirvan FZCO.
Wow.
So yeah, thank you
By
everyone.
the way, by the way, how old is your son now?
He is 2.5.
2.5. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So he is an inspiration to you as well. So
Yes, definitely.
yeah. So for the people who are, let's say, they're working at a corporate job and want to start their own business, what's your advice for them? You're placed in a, like, first of all, you've done it yourself, and you are the expert in the field of starting businesses and setting up businesses. So what would be your advice for them?
My advice would be that if you feel you can do it, it means you can do it. So just jump in. Don't hesitate too much. Do a little bit of homework for sure. Just plan a little bit and just go for it, because until and unless you don't push yourself, you won't be able to be there. So if you are thinking twice about taking that step, please do take it, because once you're there, it's a beautiful journey. And when you look back at it, you're really proud of yourself.
Wow. Yeah, that's very, very important. And I think, a lot of people get into this analysis paralysis, right? They analyze too much, and then,
Too
they just,
much.
they're like, yeah, not so take the plunge, take that step. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant.
Definitely.
How was your experience being on the Be Your Own Boss podcast?
I mean, it was amazing. I never thought I could have opened up so much. And it has been a really pleasure talking to you, getting to know and getting to learn so much from you. And I have been listening to a lot of your podcasts. So I really get to learn a lot from different people's journey, and having a one-on-one conversation with you has been a really beautiful experience. Thank you so much for
Thank you so
having me
much.
on. Thank you so much.
Likewise, I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and I really wish you all the best for your business. And thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for sharing your journey with
Thank you
us.
so much. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that was Forum Mehta, the founder of Nirvan FZO, the company that helps solopreneurs, SMEs set up their business in the UAE and also in other countries. And you've been watching and listening to Be Your Own Boss.